Welcome back to the show. It's Craig Needles in for Jeff MacArthur on AM980 today. Also in for Jeff tomorrow. Then everything gets back to normal on Monday. I want to talk now about a story that's gone viral. It's been everywhere on the internet. Not sure if you've seen it on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, but it's a lot of places. Matt Fisher is a comedian in New York. And he put out a pretty provocative blog post that said, Progressive Insurance... My sister paid Progressive Insurance to defend her killer in court. Matt's sister, Katie Fisher, was killed 2 years ago in a car crash. The other driver ran a red light. And because of a series of complicated laws in the state of Maryland, which is where this happened, they had to sue the driver of the other vehicle, they being Fisher and his parents, had to sue the driver of the other vehicle to establish negligence in the case. And Fisher is saying that a lawyer from Progressive represented the person who ran the red light, not because that person had Progressive Insurance, but because they were trying to get out of paying a $700,000 plus policy that Katie Fisher had just in case she got into a catastrophic accident with an underinsured driver, which is what's happened. And I don't necessarily want to talk a whole lot about what's gone on with Progressive as far as, are they in the right or in the wrong? Most people have their opinions on insurance companies. Most people have negative opinions about insurance companies. And this is why. I don't want to talk about that. What's really interested me is a social media reaction to this story. This was posted originally on Tumblr. It went viral on Twitter. The link was posted all over the place. It became a huge story on Facebook. And then Progressive decided they had to react, and they made some mistakes. And we'll talk about those now with Andrew Schiestel. He is a guy who knows a lot about social media and marketing. He's part of the WOW project at TVK Creative. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. What jumped out to you about this story involving Matt Fisher and Progressive Auto Insurance?
There's a few different things going on here that I think are worth looking at when we're looking at the behavior of Progressive Insurance in response to the situation. It's obvious that we can start with their Twitter behavior, and I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to actually start with a bigger thing that I think a lot of brands are grappling with, and that's actually just in general how they go about doing business in general. It's not an uncommon thing for people to dislike insurance companies to begin with, and to sometimes feel like insurance companies don't have their clients back. But what I think has changed in the last 10 years is that it's now issues like these are coming to the forefront through the media and through people's news feeds much more quickly because of social media. And I think brands in general are grappling with a bigger problem where it's almost like the way they've always done business is actually becoming extinct. And there needs to be an evolution of business practices in general towards not just like, let's get a Twitter account, let's have a Facebook account, where I think like a paradigm somewhat is right now. But it's like, how do we actually become a social business? How do we become more empathetic? How do we become more authentic in our communications? How do we really mean what we say? I think the knee-jerk reaction right now in general in business is to have brands say in boardrooms or marketers talking to agencies is, let's get the Twitter account, let's get the Facebook account. But they already have a Twitter account. They have a Facebook page. So that actually didn't solve their issues to begin with. Some of the practices leading up to this from a business operations end, I think, caused this problem in the first place.
What about the way Progressive used social media after this whole thing broke out? Their Twitter account, I guess, was almost spamming people at one point.
Every time someone was complaining, the brand was actually using a robot on Twitter. So if we're speaking about authentic communication for a minute, I think what pissed a lot of people off is Progressive Insurance was using a robot on their Twitter account and then sending the same tweet out in a very non-apologetic way. I think that's a fair way to say it because I don't think they apologized for the situation. But it was the same message. It was very inauthentic and very
literally
stale.
The exact same wording over and over again. So it became quite, I think, offensive for some of the people who were asking questions.
I think it unfortunately, flat out pissed people off. And so much so, and Craig, you pointed this out before we hopped on the call, they sent out so many robotic responses that Twitter actually shut the feed down because there was just too many of the same message. That just tells you to what degree that practice doesn't work. Now, I come from the agency end, so I know what it's like sitting in boardrooms with certain types of professionals, such as law firms and accountants, where there becomes other things to consider when you're making responses. The one compassionate thing that I have from Progressive, not totally condoning their actions, but the one compassionate thing I can see where they've made an honest mistake is probably there were some decisions that were made by the agency to do those robotic responses. And because of legal matters, when it pertains to insurance and stuff, they probably in advance, the agency are given certain templates that they have to follow in response. It's almost like a social media strategy reaction, like it's almost a policy that was supposed to happen. And I think there's a bigger lesson here now for brands and agencies to say that that way of thinking is insufficient. Even though there are legal things that a brand like Progressive Insurance needs to think about, there still needs to be a humane approach and an authentic approach to every interaction that you have using social media, because you're talking to real people who have real feelings.
I would agree. And Progressive then posted a second statement, this one on their website, saying that they weren't in that courtroom representing the man who drove through that red light and killed Katie Fisher. But then Matt Fisher, who wrote the original blog post, said, this is what I saw in the courtroom, and there was a lawyer who was self-identified as being somebody from Progressive. So what Progressive said may have technically been true, but really there was a lawyer there. And if it appears as though they've lied at all, it might be a much, much worse situation for them going forward.
And you know what? I actually don't know the whole story yet as to how that's going to go, and I think you're waiting to find that out as well. And I think that will be interesting to find out. Yes, they will have much bigger problems on their hands if that is the case. People, social media, the news media groups all across North America aren't going to simply rest on some technicality. I wanted to go back to something that happened a couple of years ago, sort of a positive angle here of how a brand I felt used social media well in response to a really big problem they faced. And Craig, do you remember Domino's a couple of years back?
Yeah.
And for those that don't remember this, there was a couple employees that made a YouTube video of basically them, I don't know how to say this politely on the radio, but producing very gross stuff out of their body on the pizzas.
Yes.
Horrible.
Absolutely.
Like worst nightmare for PR for Domino's, right? Like you can't imagine something worse than that. I felt that Domino's handled that very well within, I think it might have been a couple days, but in a fairly quick period of time, the president of the company actually produced a response video to that video, and he addressed the problem head on. He took full responsibility as a brand for it. He was decisive in what he said. He was empathetic in what he said, and he promised it wouldn't happen again. And he got that out on YouTube, and people responded very favorably to that type of response mechanism. So I really feel like in these situations, brands like Progressive can learn from case studies like that Domino's one. The story will unfold in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. If it is true that that lawyer was solicited in some way by Progressive to be there and represent that defendant, and I really think the better tactic here by Progressive is to own up at this point, suffer the impact that that's going to have, and I think in the end it'll be a much less impact than, as you said, Craig, it coming out that they've been still lying this whole time. So I think those are some of the considerations right now that Progressive should be thinking about.
And you know what? They spent millions building this brand as the friendly insurance company, and they have the woman Flo who's on the commercials, and you know, they're this friendly insurance company. And a story comes out like this, and it's almost like that money has just been wasted now because people are just going to think of that when this is all going on. They had the picture of her smiling face when they were sending out some of those robot tweets as the avatar, and it was just absolutely brutal.
Great. You know the experience I'm having. I don't know if you have the same sort of experience. Like you almost feel like you're cheated as a consumer. Remember when everything happened last year around Tiger Woods? You see Tiger Woods living this perfect life and a great golfer and everything, and then it's like wham, all this stuff happens. And I don't want to get into a morality conversation. That's not the point. It's that experience that I think consumers sometimes have where they see a brand, and I'm using Tiger Woods as an example because I consider him a brand. You see that brand as one thing, and then it's like wham, you get all this information, and it totally like sideswipes you. I think that's probably what a lot of people are feeling like right now around Progressive Insurance, just that kind of experience right now. When you go to their Facebook page, for example, I was reading it this morning, hundreds of people posting right now saying, I am done with this company. I'm going to cancel the policy. And with all that said, I still want to be fair to Progressive. We still don't know the whole story, but I think they need to really be thinking critically right now about how they're going to make their next moves.
To me, I think that it's really going to change how businesses, especially ones as large as Progressive, are going to operate in the future, because now stories like this on social media, Twitter, Facebook, they can become viral so quickly, and all of a sudden they have this massive PR problem, whereas before the communication channels to get those stories public weren't maybe quite as easy for just the regular consumer.
You know what it is, Craig? I think one of the lessons here that I'm taking from this, and I think Progressive Insurance are obviously an intelligent company. They will get through this problem and they will learn from it as well. There might be an impact to shares initially and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the big lessons here, again, is perhaps the first step as a brand isn't to just get on Twitter, isn't to get on Facebook, but to actually rethink their entire business model and ask yourself the question every day, if what I'm doing as a business was shared with millions of people, how would people respond? And would that, the way they respond, change how we as an organization do business? And I think that is one of the fundamental lessons here that I think could really help brands and improve business in general.
Andrew Schiestel, thank you so much for spending some time with us on this today. It's much appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome, Craig. Anytime. Have a wonderful day.
It's Andrew Schiestel. He's with TBK Creative. And he had some very interesting thoughts, I thought, on this social media mess that Progressive has created for themselves. Two separate statements, each of them ringing hollow with their consumers. As Andrew said, a lot of people are going on their Facebook page and going on Twitter saying, I'm done with Progressive. And I'm wondering what you think. Do you think that social media is going to become the new voice of consumer power? Now that you can get out your bad stories of things that have gone poorly, is that going to be the way you complain now? Are you going to hope something goes viral? 519-643-2222 and 1-866-354-8255. You're listening to MacArthur in the Morning. It's Craig Needles in for Jeff on